What I'm about to reveal to you will challenge everything you thought you knew about God's supernatural provision. And in the next few minutes, you're going to discover why the next 30 days could mark the most dramatic financial turnaround you've ever experienced. Jesus said something about giving that most believers have never truly tested. And what happens when you step into this covenant with genuine faith is nothing short of miraculous. Right now, in this very moment, God is extending an invitation to you. It's an invitation into a dimension of blessing that you've only glimpsed from a distance. You've heard about it. You've seen it in other people's lives. You've wondered if it could ever be real for you. And today, I'm here to tell you that God is ready to prove himself faithful in ways that will leave you absolutely stunned. But here's what makes the next 30 days so critical. There's a testing period that heaven recognizes when you make a decision to honor God with your first fruits. It's not that God needs 30 days to work. It's that you need 30 days to witness the systematic dismantling of every financial barrier that's been holding you back. You're struggling right now. I know you are. The bills are piling up. The anxiety about money wakes you up at 3 in the morning. You've prayed and prayed, but it feels like heaven is silent about your financial situation. You've worked hard, you've been faithful in so many areas, but there's this persistent pressure, this constant lack that seems to follow you no matter what you do. And somewhere deep inside, you've wondered if God really sees what you're going through. Let me tell you with absolute certainty, he sees. He knows, and he's been waiting for you to step into the one principle that unlocks his storehouse. The tithe isn't about religion. It's not about rules. It's about relationship and trust. When you bring your tithe with faith, you're not just giving money. You're making a declaration that echoes through the spiritual realm. You're saying to every demon of poverty, every spirit of lack, every force that's been blocking your blessing, God is my source, and I trust him more than I trust what I can see in my bank account. That declaration changes everything. Listen closely. Malachi chapter 3 verse 10. God himself issues a challenge that appears nowhere else in Scripture. He says, "Bring the whole tithe into the storehouse, that there may be food in my house. Test me in this, and see if I will not throw open the floodgates of heaven and pour out so much blessing that there will not be room enough to store it." Did you catch that? God is inviting you to test him. This is the only place in the entire Bible where God says, "Put me to the test." He's that confident in his ability to bless you when you honor him with your tithe. But here's what most people don't know. The tithe isn't just about the money you give. It's about the faith you activate when you give it. You can write a check for 10% of your income and still miss the entire blessing if your heart isn't aligned with faith. The tithe without faith is just a transaction. The tithe with faith is a supernatural key that unlocks dimensions of provision you never knew existed. When you give that tithe and you say, "God, I believe you are faithful, I believe you see me, I believe you are my provider," something shifts in the heavenly realm. Imagine this. Imagine waking up 30 days from now and looking at your life, and the financial pressure that's suffocating you right now is completely gone. Not because you got a lottery ticket, not because some distant relative left you an inheritance, but because God opened doors you didn't even know existed. Imagine unexpected checks showing up in your mailbox. Imagine promotions you weren't expecting. Imagine business opportunities that seem to fall from the sky. Imagine debts being canceled, expenses disappearing, and provision coming from directions you never anticipated. This isn't fantasy. This is what happens when you tithe with faith. In the first 10 days, you're going to face a test. The enemy is going to panic because he knows what's coming. Suddenly, unexpected expenses might pop up. Your car might need a repair. Something in your house might break. This is spiritual warfare, and you need to recognize it for what it is. The devil doesn't want you to complete this 30-day journey because he knows that if you do, you're going to break free from his grip on your finances forever. When these tests come, and they will come, you don't shrink back. You don't regret your obedience. You stand firm and you declare, I have honored God and God will honor me. My provision is not dependent on my circumstances. My provision flows from the throne of heaven. Jesus taught extensively about money. Did you know that? More than half of his parables dealt with finances and possessions. Why? Because he knew that money would be one of the primary battlegrounds for your faith. He knew that if the enemy could keep you in financial bondage, he could limit your ability to fulfill your divine purpose. But when you break free financially through the principle of tithing with faith, you don't just get more money. You get freedom. You get peace. You get the ability to be generous, to bless others, to fund the kingdom, to live without that constant gnawing anxiety about provision. And this is where it gets powerful. Between day 10 and day 20, you're going to start noticing small shifts. Maybe someone pays back a debt you'd written off years ago. Maybe you find a better deal on something you needed to purchase. Maybe your boss mentioned something about reviewing salaries. These are the early indicators that heaven has heard your declaration of faith. God is moving on your behalf. The angels assigned to your financial breakthrough are going to work. But stay with me, because what comes next is crucial. Your consistency matters. This isn't about tithing once and hopping for a miracle. This is about establishing a pattern of faithfulness that positions you for continuous blessing. When you tithe with faith for 30 consecutive days, you're not just testing God's faithfulness. You're developing a trust muscle in your own spirit that will serve you for the rest of your life. You're learning that God is reliable, that His promises are true, that He really does care about every detail of your life. There's a secret that the enemy doesn't want you to know. When you tithe, you don't actually lose that money. You're transferring it from an economy that's subject to inflation, recession, and lack, into a heavenly economy where multiplication and abundance are the governing principles. Your 10% in God's hands becomes infinitely more powerful than 100% in your own hands without His blessing. It's kingdom mathematics, and it defies natural logic. Think about the widow of Zarephath. She was down to her last bit of flour and oil. She was preparing to make one final meal for herself and her son before they died of starvation. The prophet Elijah showed up and made an outrageous request. He said, "Make me a meal first and then make something for yourself and your son." That wasn't cruelty. That was a test of faith. And when she honored the man of God first, when she gave from her lack, the flour and oil didn't run out. For years, she lived in supernatural provision, because she made one faith decision in a moment of desperation. You're in your moment right now. God is asking you to make a faith decision that doesn't make sense to your natural mind. You're looking at your bills and thinking, I can't afford to tithe. But God is saying, you can't afford not to. The question isn't whether you have enough to tithe. The question is whether you have enough faith to trust God when you tithe. Wait, there's more. Jesus revealed about this principle. In Luke chapter 6, verse 38, He said, "Give, and it will be given to you. A good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over, will be poured into your lap. For with the measure you use, it will be measured to you." Do you see the promise? When you give to God, He doesn't just give back to you equally. He gives back abundantly, overflowing, more than you can contain. But notice the condition. The measure you use determines the measure you receive. If you give grudgingly, sparingly, without faith, you'll receive accordingly. But when you give generously, joyfully, with absolute faith that God is your provider, heaven responds with overwhelming abundance. As you move into the third week of your 30-day tithing journey with faith, testimonies are going to start manifesting. You're going to see tangible evidence of God's hand on your finances. This is where doubt tries to creep in and steal your miracle by suggesting it's all coincidence. Don't fall for that lie. God is moving. God is providing. God is keeping His promise to you. Document what He's doing. Write down every unexpected blessing, every divine connection, every miraculous provision. You're building a memorial of God's faithfulness that will strengthen your faith for years to come. Here's what I need you to understand. The tithe isn't a magic formula. It's a covenant. When you tithe, you're entering into a sacred agreement with God. You're saying, God, I acknowledge that everything I have comes from you. I'm returning the first 10% to you as an act of worship, trust, and obedience. And God responds to that covenant with protection and provision that transcends your natural circumstances. In Malachi 3, after God talks about testing him with the tithe, He says, I will prevent pests from devouring your crops, and the vines in your fields will not drop their fruit before it is ripe. What does that mean for you today? It means God will protect what you have. The unexpected disasters that drain your finances, the constant breakdowns, the never-ending emergencies, God puts a hedge of protection around you when you're faithful with your tithe. This is the part that changes everything. You need to understand that tithing with faith isn't just about receiving financial blessings, although those will come. It's about developing a relationship with God where you truly, deeply, experientially know that He is your provider. It's about breaking the spirit of mammon that's had a grip on your life. It's about stepping into the freedom that Jesus died to give you, freedom from anxiety, freedom from lack, freedom from the constant worry about money. In the final days of your 30-day journey, something profound is going to happen in your spirit. You're going to realize that you don't need to see the entire path. You just need to trust the next step. You're going to discover a peace about your finances that you haven't felt in years, maybe ever. Even if all the money hasn't manifested yet, you're going to have an inner knowing that God is working, that provision is coming, that you're taken care of. That peace is actually more valuable than the money itself, because that peace keeps you anchored when storms come. And let me tell you what happens after the 30 days. This isn't the end. This is the beginning. You've established a pattern of faithfulness. You've proven to yourself and to heaven that you're serious about honoring God with your finances. Now God can trust you with more because you've demonstrated that you won't make money your idol, that you'll put Him first regardless of your circumstances. The blessings that started as a trickle in the first 30 days become a steady stream. And if you continue in faithfulness, that stream becomes a river of provision that not only meets your needs but overflows to bless everyone around you. Jesus is telling you right now, this is your moment. You've been waiting for breakthrough. You've been praying for change. You've been desperate for relief from financial pressure. God is handing you the key. The tithe with faith is that key, but it requires action. It requires courage. It requires you to do something that feels risky and uncomfortable. Every hero of faith in the Bible had to make a decision that didn't make natural sense. Abraham had to leave his home without knowing where he was going. Moses had to confront Pharaoh. David had to face Goliath. The disciples had to leave their businesses to follow Jesus. And you, right now, have to decide whether you're going to trust God enough to honor Him with your tithe. Let me give you something practical. Before you give your next tithe, I want you to pray. Don't just write the check or set up the automatic transfer mechanically. Stop and pray. Say something like this: God, I bring this tithe to you as an act of worship and faith. I declare that you are my provider. I believe your word that says you will open the windows of heaven and pour out blessing. I trust you with my finances. I trust you with my future. I'm not giving this out of obligation, but out of love and faith. Thank you for the provision that's already on its way. In Jesus' name. When you pray that prayer with genuine faith, you're activating the covenant. You're positioning yourself for supernatural breakthrough. Your breakthrough begins when you stop trying to figure everything out and start trusting God with your first fruits. The breakthrough begins when you make the decision that God's promise is more real than your bank balance. The breakthrough begins when you step out in faith even though fear is screaming at you to hold back. This is spiritual warfare, and your obedience is your weapon. Every tithe you give with faith is a punch to the enemy's grip on your finances. Every time you honor God first, you're declaring victory over the spirit of poverty. Heaven is waiting for you to take this step. Angels are standing by, ready to move on your behalf. Divine opportunities are being aligned. Doors are about to open, but none of it can manifest until you activate your faith through obedience. God doesn't just bless good intentions, He blesses faithful action. Right now, make the decision. Commit to 30 days of tithing with genuine faith. Write it down. Tell someone who will hold you accountable. Set up your giving so it's the first thing that happens when you receive income, not the last. God wants you to know that He sees your sacrifice. When you tithe out of abundance, it's good. But when you tithe from a place of lack, when it costs you something, when it requires faith because you're not sure how the rest will work out, that's when God moves with exceptional power. The widow gave her last 2 coins, and Jesus said she gave more than all the wealthy people who gave from their surplus. Your faithful tithe from a place of need is so precious to God. He will not let you down. This is your moment. These next 30 days are a divine appointment. You're going to look back on this decision as the turning point in your financial life. The lack stops here. The struggle ends here. The breakthrough begins here. Not because of anything magical about the number 30, but because you're finally aligning yourself with God's economic system. And when you operate according to kingdom principles, you get kingdom results. When you surrender this area to God, when you trust Him with your finances through faithful tithing, you're going to experience Him in ways you never have before. You're going to see His hand moving in your life. You're going to witness miracles that leave you in awe. You're going to become a testimony of God's faithfulness that inspires everyone around you. Your children are going to learn from your example that God is trustworthy. Your friends are going to ask what changed in your life. And you'll be able to point them to the faithfulness of God. I'm declaring over you right now that the windows of heaven are opening. I'm declaring that provision is coming. I'm declaring that lack is being broken off your life. I'm declaring that in 30 days you're going to have a testimony of God's miraculous provision. The spirit of poverty has no authority over you anymore. Financial anxiety is being replaced with supernatural peace. Closed doors are opening. New opportunities are being released. Divine connections are being made. Your faithfulness is being rewarded. God is not a man that he should lie. What he has promised he will do. Trust him. Honor him with your tithe. Give it with faith. And watch what happens in the next 30 days. Your breakthrough isn't coming. It's already here. Receive it. Walk in it. And get ready to testify about the goodness and faithfulness of God. He loves you more than you can imagine, and he's about to prove it in ways that will transform your life forever.